I'd like to call this meeting to order this October 6th, 2021. I'd like to acknowledge that the offices of the Wilfrid Laurier University Students Associations are on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. As for regrets, I've received none, but at this time, Director May is not present in the meeting. Moving on, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda with the amendment to add in the discussion about the fall by-election contingency after the 2020 annual general meeting serial hiring discussion? Motion by Director Shanko, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion of the matter? As I see none, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director, oh, we got a voice again. Yay. Okay, Director Del Giudice.
I approve.
Is Director May here? No. Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Thank you, Pastor. Pass unanimous consent. Next, moving on to conflict of interest. We have any conflicts of interest to declare? As I see now, we can go forward to comments from the chair of the board and CGO. So not too many comments on my end, as I know that many of you guys have been volunteering and participating in getting the votes for the election. I do have some updates about the Brantford side of the election. I was informed by our DRO that unfortunately the election, two of the volunteers of the election, volunteers team staff members have come into contact with someone who has been diagnosed as COVID positive. So because they were interacting with the rest of the team members, it was decided yesterday and today to stop their activities. So we will see a drop in Brantford numbers due to that, because it was determined with conversation between myself and DRO and communication with the CRO that that was the most prudent health decision. So that's just the update there. And opening floor for questions. Yes, Director Bothwell.
Yeah, so could Waterloo directors go to Brantford then, possibly?
We
If
could,
There are
but
any of us that could come?
yeah, but that's the problem, right? How many of us are available tomorrow?
Or what about Waterloo campus volunteers? Because
We are very lacking in terms of volunteers in the Waterloo campus who are also available.
yeah, but I mean, like when we swarmed today, like every place we pretty much hit every single person on campus. Like I was hitting like people that had already been asked. More
Mhm.
frequently than none.
Yeah, we could try and hit Brantford, but that would require immense commitment, and I'm not too sure. And this is where I'm going to ask the executive director: would that even be feasible to have directors drive to Waterloo with transportation from the students' union?
Oh, so like have somebody from the Students' Union drive folks down to Brantford?
Yeah, I'm assuming none of us here have a mode of
Or-
transportation.
That would be difficult because people would have to clear their schedules, etc. So not particularly realistic.
Yeah, which is the unfortunate. That's kind of the whole reason why we decided to hire the DRO. I have told her, because the DRO herself has not been contacted with the individuals, so I've told her to continue to try her best efforts to do the same thing that we are doing here on the Waterloo campus, which is to, as you quote Director Buffalo, swarm the campus. Yeah, Director Vale, you have a question?
Yeah, in a bit of a comment. I guess going forward, can we maybe look at having maybe the vice chair have access to the Zoom account, just so that I mean I realize things come up, but so that I'm just cognizant of the fact that we have, you know, directors and staff and gallery and media and stuff who are expecting meetings to start at 8:30. I guess I'm not criticizing. I think out of respect for everyone, probably going forward, if we can kind of that way, at least maybe the vice chair can start at 8:30 and then we can kind of get meetings moving.
And that is an excellent thing that I've tried to do before, but unfortunately for some apparent reason, I am not allowed admin privileges to co-host people unless the meeting has started. That's kind of the same issue that we had during the May secretary hirings, where I had to be the one to set up the meeting, and if I had to step out, then I was able to do that, but not create an independent meeting.
But isn't the Isn't the vice chair, I think under our policy, technically supposed to have access to the computer? Like the logins and stuff, basically to be able to take over if you're not available.
Yes, but I don't think that that was considered in this case,
Yeah.
so we can definitely move
It's
forward
just
with
a
that
comment. I
there.
think maybe going forward, I think it just maybe would make things a
Yeah.
bit smoother. I'm just cognizant of the fact that we have staff and,
No, of
guests and media
course.
who are expecting it to start at 8:30, and so, and
No,
obviously want to
of
encourage
course, yeah.
participation, so.
And that was there, as I said before, my deepest apologies for that. It has unfortunately been crazy day.
We can work towards getting a solution where a meeting can
Mhm.
start without the chair if he's not there.
Absolutely, yeah, it would be, I think this is unfortunately the first time I've done this, and I hope it will not happen again. And that is.
I'm not making a big deal. I'm just
Yes.
cognizant of the fact that, I'm not worried about me personally, more of, others who
Yeah.
might have other commitments or.
Of course, and I'm very much cognizant of everyone else's time in this case too. Also, again, my deepest sincere apology for everyone who has been negatively affected by my lateness to this meeting today. Answering Director Boswell's question in chat, can we set up a link meeting and using someone's codes for some reason that is not available? I still can't even get my name changed from Samit Hussein. So that is another little interesting quirk of ICT here. So, but I will work with the executive director and CEO to ensure that this does not happen again in the future. Is there any other questions for the chair of the board and CGO? If there are none, then I'll pass on to comments of the president and CEO, Yamlov.
Hi, sorry. So first, Erin Quinn, our VPUA, has officially left. So I've been stepping in to oversee both her AVPs in the interim and until hiring closes. Beyond that, Ty is leaving this week. So our VP Student Services on the Waterloo campus. But as I mentioned last time, I believe Rachel Bishop, who has been working with us on our support on our full-time staff team, has agreed, to work with us for the next 4 weeks to 6 weeks till we find someone to replace Ty's position. So that position has been covered. We are also really excited about the Indigenous education event / fundraiser that we have now scheduled for October 21st. Obviously, the marketing hasn't really begun because we've only just found some of our panelists in so far, but you can expect marketing to come out hopefully by sometime next week. But following when I get back from my time away in Thanksgiving. Beyond that, our first year mental health resources presentations to the classrooms have been going fairly well. I did both of the politics classes for the first years, and I know that my team has also been working to communicate with professors in first years. So I think that there's been at least 5 to 6 presentations in so far, and we're hopeful that at least we can get a few more prior to before reading week starts, and then I know that there's a few more after reading week, and then we'll revisit the topic to see if this is something that we hope to do in January as well. For context, those presentations, for those who might not know, are just us having worked with wellness this summer to kind of create a 5-minute script of what resources are available to first years, including the Empower Me mental health resource, and sharing those with large first year classes that we've deemed to be large, those 200, 300 students. And then I think those are fairly most of my large initiatives. Lastly being, sorry, I forgot this one. We met with CISETI, so the Center for EDI initiatives. They're the center of, I can't recall what they stand for, Phil.
That'll be the Center for Student Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion.
Sorry, I just couldn't think of what the S stood for. And we were kind of just discussing potentially just figuring out how we can best support our clubs who have roots in EDI initiative. So, we've sent out a questionnaire for all those clubs, whichever ones are looking for support, to see what we can best do and see how we as an institution can work with the university to best support those students and those organizations. Just very, very early stages. And those are most of my updates.
Okay, thank you so much for those updates. Well, I just noticed that your name is slightly misspelled on the Zoom link there, unless it's supposed to be Y. But I know that you also have provided updates to board regarding the visual project, so we'll leave that for the second part of. So first of all, does anyone have updates for the president, specifically for the board report, and or any of the verbal updates she has given so far? If not, then I have a couple questions. I noticed that in the programming service Waterloo, there was the section about finalizing phase 2 of the signage project. So I just kind of want to know if there's more details on that specifically, either yourself, the president, or I suppose the executive director to answer this.
So I know that Ty has ordered some more signage that's due to come in. And I believe that he's created or transferred the project onto, I believe, his next, Rachel. I know that there's certain details to it. There are a few more things that are just being shipped in. Obviously, I don't know the exact details off the top of my head, but if that's something that you'd like to know more of, I'm sure that I can find it and give it to you, send it to you over email at some point.
Yeah, because I definitely know that at least in the summer discussion, there was a lot of interest in terms of just making sure this project was actually gonna have maximum utility and benefits to students returning on campus. So I believe that's the same. Yeah.
I apologize. It's predominantly done. I think it was
Okay.
just the last portion, like
Go on.
most of it has been done.
Okay.
I also think there's a bit of confusion. So the signage project that the services department has undertaken is about informing students about services like Foot Patrol, Food Bank, the Student Rights Advisory Committee, etc. And it's basically updating outdated signage that's been all over campus for several years. The signage project that I think you might be referring to, Andrew, was the welcome banners that the university helped coordinate.
Yes.
And we gave them a very specific scenario that required student artwork to be solicited and put onto the signage in order to be able to receive the funding. They chose not to pursue that, and therefore the Students' Union did not financially contribute to the Welcome Banner project.
Okay, and I just wanted to thank you for the clarification, because I did notice that there wasn't none of that student art, so I just wanted to make sure. So I appreciate the clarification there. And my second comment, it's more of like a comment and personal anecdote. So I did attend the Truth and Reconciliation event that the Students' Union held, and I think in some discussion, I thought it was a very excellent event. I was wondering if it was possible for the president or operations team to kind of leave a framework for it to be done next year, but I guess in a more official capacity. Just want to know that.
I think that obviously the full-time staff like Phil can decide if that's something that they want to choose to do, but I'm sure that whoever I transition will also be, I can notify them of how we handled it. But at the end of the day, Jason and Phil's team were really the ones who put it all together at the end. So a huge thank you to them.
You know, I did hear that, I believe Jason's wife really helped contribute to a lot of the education materials that event, which was really, really insightful. So yes, that concludes my questions. To the president, does anyone else have any questions before we move on to the second part, which is the briefing note for the University Students' Union promotional video? If not, then I guess either our president, I don't know if you'd like to speak to kind of the specifics of the briefing note, or anything that the board should be specifically aware of before we open up to questions regarding this.
I will just be honest, my laptop is not the best functioning thing. So if I don't have it pulled up in front of me, I usually use my work computer. So I can definitely pull that up to speak to specifics, but I don't really think that there's anything outside of that video briefing that Phil, Megan, and I put together that isn't clear. But if there's any questions about it, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, so opening for questions regarding the briefing note, and yes, Director Vale.
I actually have a few, and I think I'm going to take the cake from Andrew this time for the finance questions. My first one is, so you say budget costs. So as you can recall, and I think everyone here recalls, the board approved a motion of up to 15K. Now I'm just wondering, so you have budget cost here of 12,235.52. So what does that represent? Is that a subtotal? Is that with the HST rebate included, or is this after tax, or what does this represent, I guess?
This is, so tax is not included in that because I believe that tax is removed on like from our institution. So that's basically the final cost for us total.
I don't believe it's fully removed, but in any event, so how come it's more expensive than the quote we were provided?
The quote that we were provided was roughly around this, with the intention that it could have been a little bit higher. That's why we didn't ask for the flat 10K, because we did have belief that it could be, it would be a little more flexible.
Okay, so like, did you end up going with the vendor that you had at the time that we discussed this, or did you get like a cheaper quote, or?
So all of the vendors ended up being roughly around the same. So we did go with the one that was the best in our opinion and the one that had been recommended to us. That one was able to give us footage of the Brantford campus and B-roll of our university that other providers wouldn't have been able to do. So that's why we decided to go with this vendor, because it was fairly going to be the same price and they had a better proposal.
No, fair enough. The accountant in me, I mean, naturally, it's just a number. So without the context, so that definitely helps. And then I guess my other question was, and this is just a curiosity thing, and because I know that the marketing director, I believe, in one of the parts of the agenda, I think about the email that went out for the election thing, like we'd get some maybe stats on that. But so it's similar stats, but in the stats that are listed in here, so when they say unopened, does that mean they unopened the email or didn't open, or does that mean the video link that's included? Just curious.
I can't speak.
It means the email was delivered, but the student never opened the email. That is correct.
Okay. No, fair enough. No. Okay. No, that answers my questions. Thank you very much.
The Students Union email open rates, just for context, are pretty decent when you look at the traditional open rates of email campaigns.
No, for sure.
Okay. Yes, Director Bothwell.
Just while we're on the topic of student union email open rates, I just want to point out that a lot of students today came up to me and said that the SU email went into their junk mail. Just thought you guys would want to know that. I have no questions about the budget video proposal. That was fine. But
thank you for letting us know.
it also, it was in my Outlook, but people said theirs went into junk. So
does it come, so the changes that ICT made over the course of the summer, does it come into your inbox as an external email?
So in my inbox, it went into like the other section on like my phone app.
Yep.
But I was like talking to some girl in class earlier and I was like, oh, like, did you vote in the election yet? And she said no. And then I was like, oh, there's an email. And she went through and she said it was in her junk email. So
in the subject line, does the word external show up in anybody's emails?
Let me check.
Not for myself.
All right, well, that's not nothing, so that's good. The junk is not good, and the other is also not great. But that might be because it comes from MailChimp usually, but definitely something for us to look into. Thank you.
Yeah, I just thought it was probably something of a little bit of importance, especially because our voting numbers are quite low.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Director Vale.
Yeah, just I comment on that. I know a lot of like the bookstore and a lot of the others I've heard of having similar issues, I think, as well. Like I personally have had some go to the bookstore recently in DECA and stuff, go to my junk mail, but even though I have everything go out, basically set so it doesn't go to my junk at all. And then I can, if it's junk, I'll deal with it. So I think that they maybe, I think it's really just Microsoft, I think, to their servers that kind of screen all the email.
I think these are definitely a lot of good points to consider, so we can forward that to the SU, who can hopefully get into contact with ICT and fix that as soon as possible. Not even just for the election, but for moving forward too as well. Before we conclude our comments from the president and CEO, does anyone else have any more questions regarding the promotional video? If there is none, then we can continue on to the comments of the executive director and COO.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add to what was already a part of the agenda package. I would like to point out, though, that our operations team are looking to open the Golden Grounds Cafe on the Brantford campus. I want to say on Monday, October 25th, the second week after Reading Week. That is the target. I just am not 100% sure if that's in fact the Monday, but whatever that second Monday after Reading Week is, that's the day that we want to be able to open up Golden Grounds in the RCW building. And the hours will be 9 till I believe 3, Monday to Friday. And we will kind of reevaluate after several weeks to see what kind of trends have presented themselves, to see what kind of adjustments we need to make operationally on the Brantford campus. Also a quick update with regards to the Fred Nichols Campus Center second floor project. The official counters for the kitchenette and the bathrooms are scheduled to be installed over the course of Reading Week, which is encouraging. But there have been some delays with regards to the waste diversion unit. But slowly yet surely things are moving. We'll be able to hopefully start to move the services into the services space shortly after Reading Week, which hopefully we'll be able to say that the whole thing is fully operational, fingers crossed, in November. But we'll continue to update the board in as real time as possible. So expect another 2-4 Lounge update at the next board meeting on October 20th.
Excellent. Thank you, Executive Director and COO. Does anyone have any questions for him? I also will say, and this is a little bit separate because not students union related, but Veritas Cafe is slated to be open after Reading Week 2 as well. So that's very exciting.
On the Waterloo campus.
On the Waterloo campus, yes. I'm sure that, and another point, could a report be sent back to board in terms of like I guess things that you notice in terms of on the Brantford campus when Golden Grounds opens up, like in terms of any changes or any pivots that need to be made in the strategy?
I'm sure we can kind of continue to have the conversation, but if the board wants something specific, I would ask that they make a very specific request. But happy to provide information as long as we know what information the board is looking for.
I only ask because during myself and Vice Chair Sneezy's time on the Brantford campus during O Week and speaking to a lot of students about their concerns, one big one, which I think is very ongoing, is the fact that there's not a lot of on-campus food options for Brantford students, right? With the students union specifically, right?
There's not, I mean, that's a much bigger conversation, but yes, I understand.
So yeah, so I think it'll be really, productive to have maybe some sort of briefing up too as well, and also post stats, and these students who are aware that the board was promised to take a look into it can see that such requests are being followed up.
So are you making a motion to have a briefing note prepared? Like what? Like
I suppose so. Yes. Can I motion have a briefing note prepared regarding updates of the Golden Grounds after it's opened to a date that is I guess determined with a future conversation with the board and the operations team. Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Shanda. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I guess I'll second or move it, but I guess I was just wondering, like, what was your thinking like in this briefing note? I guess I just
want to see, like, like in terms of like how profitable it is, what our students kind of feedbacks regarding, right? Let's just see if there's any ways that we can, do to make it better. I do know that when the turret was renovated, the students union was received a briefing note in terms of an expected decrease in revenue because alcohol sales were no longer the primary revenue source and functionality. So just kind of like broader, overarching.
No, that's fair.
Is it that? Yes, President Yanlov.
So you would want a briefing note as soon as it's been functional?
No, like on the dates like that, on the date that will be determined, like, with a future conversation. But obviously, having a briefing note immediately when it's open will not be at all useful for review by the board.
So I think you would need to be explicitly clear with not necessarily when, but what information it is that you're looking for in that briefing note. So if you can be explicitly clear in that, because otherwise like we could put a briefing note together that totally misses the mark and defeats the purpose. So
I believe a briefing note in terms of like the main sources of revenue coming from this student feedback, right? Does it actually like satisfy, kind of like needs and ends of what we're trying to
So
provide?
let's be perfectly clear.
Yeah.
Golden Grounds is not a business designed to meet all of those needs. It's not a place where you can get a meal per se.
Mhm.
You can grab sandwiches, you can grab muffins and kind of grab and go type stuff. And most importantly,
I guess to be a bit more specific is that will it be a successful venture? Because I know that we closed Williams for very particular reasons, right?
that's right. So
So-
Williams was a sinkhole in terms of money. The costs to operate the business of Golden Grounds are significantly lower than that of the Williams
Mhm.
coffee place. Golden Grounds is not a new business. If there are accounting records and audited numbers for the past several years, it's largely done as a service to students and the Brantford community. And ultimately on an annual basis, it makes a profit, just a very nominal profit.
Mhm. I guess I'll open it up to the floor first before I get to what my idea of the briefing note would be. Yes, Director Vale.
Yeah, I guess I'm still kind of unclear of, really what we'd want in that briefing note. But I guess maybe one thing, maybe just a thought be useful is kind of like, are they, once it opens, I guess, and probably, I think, but I don't know if we need it really in a formal briefing note sense, is like kind of like the update sort of we got with Wilfs, like, that I think even the one today, like there's an increase in traffic, so their hours are, so like, are a lot of students taking advantage of it or not, basically? I think, at least from my view, that would be just really,
That was
Makes sense.
kind of my idea too, as well, with a little bit more emphasis on the financials. I think based on what I'm looking, including Director Bossel's comments, we can probably move this to the next meeting. It's not at all a big issue. It's more of just I thought it would be something important and to showcase to Brantford students that we are trying to make sure that we care about them and that this is the best decision we can make as a student union for them. Director Rothwell.
No, I was just gonna echo my comments. Yeah, I think like we just found out right now that they're
Mhm.
reopening. I think we should take some time and think about what we need in the briefing note and
Mm.
give them time to open before we're all
Sounds good.
like asking the students how they feel.
Perfect. Okay, we can go about that. So if there's no other questions for the executive director and COO. Any other questions? Yes, Director Vale.
just for the record, I'll withdraw I believe I had moved it or seconded. I think I moved it, right? I'll just withdraw my moving of it.
Okay,
And then-
there's no on the record. Perfect. If there's no other questions, then we can move on to the next item of discussion, which is the 2020 annual general meeting, zero hiring discussion. So even though we are in the midst of the current fall by-election, it's very prudent for us to think about how to plan things for the January 2021 election. I know based on records of last year that the CRO was hired quite early too as well. And I think it would be very prudent for us to do the same way, especially with the hiring committee being enacted already. Yeah, 2022, my apologies. So after some discussion, the idea was to have the job posting, although there's still the honorarium discussion, but to have the job posting, maintain the status quo of like, the of in terms of the honorarium as well as the job description of previous years of anticipating a on-campus election, and then have that posted either sometime after reading week or during the reading week, and giving a good sizable time for people to find out about this and then perform the hirings and hopefully hire the CRO by the beginning of November. Open the board up for kind of like questions and suggestions if they think that this time is appropriate, or if they think that we can do a little bit sooner, or if it should be a bit later. Yes, Director Vale.
Do we have like the job description, or are we looking like the same one as last time?
It
Or
is essentially the same one as last time, with, of course, the dates changed to reflect the dates to be served with during the elections calendar that we will have to have a conversation about. But I thought that for purposes of this meeting, we can table that until after the reading week, or just move that to next meeting. Yes, Director Vale.
sorry, so like you mean like we'll wait to hire and do all that till after reading? Is that what you're thinking?
No, no. The idea is, do we want to have the hiring done now, right before reading week, during reading week, because the operation team will still be in the office, or after reading week? That's my question, right, for the board. Hope that answers your question, Director Vale. Director Bothwell.
I say after reading week. We have way too much going on right now. Just wait.
Okay. Okay, Director Del Giudice.
I would also say after reading week, we're too close to reading week in my view to start this process.
Yeah.
And during reading week, nobody's going to check their emails. So I think after reading week is the best direction to go.
Okay. Executive Director Champagne, I did see your hand up. Would you like to
No, I'm
speak?
good.
Okay, good. Does the sentiments of the board kind of lean more towards just after reading week? We can have the job posting and hire the CRO by early November, right? Director Bothwell.
Yeah, I'd like to put a motion to hire after reading week.
Perfect. Would anyone want to second that motion? Seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion? Director Bothwell?
No, sorry.
Oh, no worries. Any discussion on the matter? I see none. All those in favor? Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shanto,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy. Director McCarthy,
I approve.
thank you. Director Singleton,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
The motion passes unanimous consent. Next, we can move on to our fall by-election quorum discussion. So right now, I did inform the board prior to this meeting. We are sitting in a position. Wait, actually, first, I will ask the executive director, would it be imprudent to announce the exact numbers of where we're sitting on in terms of quorum?
Well, do you know what the actual quorum number is?
I do know exactly what the exact quorum number is of the
So
10%.
I would offer up, how close are we to quorum in terms of percentage?
We are just over halfway.
Okay, I think so. If you say I'm going to arbitrarily assign 52% to it, I don't know that that's the number, but
It's about approximately 55%,
okay.
approximately there, right? So that's after 2 days. The issue at hand was the fact that the total unique students who signed into the program. So from what I'm understanding of this program is that these are students who actually scanned the code or clicked on the link and logged in. So these are voters, spoilers, so people who have abstained or did not vote, but they had to have logged into the system. This number is what would have been anticipated based on all the marketing efforts that have been done today. But for some reason, either a sizable number of students decided to log in but did not vote, or some system error occurred, which may have created a lack of voter counts. So now we're sitting in a bit more of a precarious situation than initially anticipated for voting. So before I open the floor questions, I'm having this discussion because according to the elections policy, if the board does not meet quorum, we will have a emergency board meeting to discuss this. And I believe one of the options that can be exercised is the potential to extend an voting period, right? So I believe that it's prudent to have the discussion now, so then we don't have to have it tomorrow. So we have a contingency that we can vote on. But before we get into that, now open for the questions. So Director Vale.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, do we know if like ITT reported any issues with the system today, or if we can confirm if there was issues, or
I
because I
will.
presume there'd be logs and stuff that they can kind of validate that as
I
well
will
as
defer that
is
question
there-
to the executive director because I think they might know more for that. Potentially.
Sorry, I have not been informed of anything. I know that Andre, who set up the system, is on holiday this week, but in communication with Tim today about the reason why I have my hand up, he has reported no problems that I'm aware of, but we can certainly ask them to do a double check.
Mhm.
so
So yes.
and just a thought, but I know another thing could be like so when you do your rankings, if you will, and then you have to check the little box saying like I confirm this is my voter and submit. So there's like a few things. So is it possible that people logged in but just didn't actually hit submit and check that little box first? Or
There's very much so. I mean, like, but if you clicked the submit or the button without having done all the appropriate steps, the system would just refresh the page and would not allow you to continue. And you will get a nice little thank you for voting. You may sign out now little web page if you did successfully complete all the steps. I will defer the question to the CRO because I believe he might have some updates regarding this too as well.
Yeah, so I didn't get any email about any outages or any issues. That being said, I did get a lot of people telling me today that they tried to vote in the morning, but there was just they couldn't vote. So I think it's worthwhile to just bring in send in an inquiry to figure out what happened, if anything happened. And then I guess go from there.
Yeah, so I will say that we did, yeah, there was potential issue, like there was like issues in the morning regarding the system, but when you look into the behind the scenes and you see kind of the hourly breakdown, the hourly breakdowns of votes in the morning were very consistent to what I saw being, boots on the ground and getting people to vote, and the times where for example, and the times where myself and Director Del Giudice did rounds, we did the rounds at about the same time in the same locations. I'll give like a ballpark figure, like between 2 to 4, we were able to collect well over 200 votes. In the exact same times, we probably encountered the same amount of people, but in that exact same time frame, less than 100 votes were captured. So even though we did make sure that we saw everyone actually log in and go and answer any of the questions. So there seems to be an interesting discrepancy where either people are just simply logged in and then decided not to vote after that and finish the final step, because the discrepancy between total unique logins and the total voter turnout is over 300 unique logins. So it's very significant. Just for the record, so voting is now open only from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It starts at 8 a.m. on the Tuesday and ends at 8 p.m. on Thursday. So it's a vote, it opens 24/7. I have records of people voting successfully at like 4 a.m. in the morning for some reason, like 1 or 2 stragglers. So there we go. Yes, Director Bothwell.
Just like in regards to people having issues with the site, I had a friend text me at 3:15 today saying, why can't I vote on the SU website? The link won't load.
Okay.
And she did end up getting it. It like worked when she like refreshed it a bunch of times, but just something to think about.
Mhm. I mean, the issue is that a potential issue could have been, our efforts to gather votes were exceedingly successful and we could have overloaded the system, although I don't think that will be like I don't think that is likely. It's just the fact that yesterday, the discrepancy between total unique students who signed in and the vote turnout was probably less than 50. Like it was more of like 20-ish students. But to have a huge discrepancy in the hundreds today, like, the total unique students who signed in was where I expected the voter turnout to be at the end of today. So that's why we're having this weird issue. And another issue is that, law students may have think that they voted, and trying to like ask them to vote again, double check is a exceedingly, monumental task to get them to do something which they thought they already did successfully. So yeah, I see your hand is still up, Director Bothwell. I'll move it to Director Vale first, and I'll come back to you on the speakers list.
I guess I had two thoughts, and I guess in probably both would maybe involve like the operations team. So I'm cognizant, tomorrow, and who knows what their days are entail. But the one idea is, would it be possible to maybe send another email to those who didn't reopen or open the email that was sent out? I guess it would have been yesterday at this point, like basically letting know like voting is closing tonight at 8, kind of get your vote in. And then another component of that would be, since it sounds like the system sort of tracks, the people who've logged in, but also who voted, that discrepancy there, is there a way maybe ICT can kind of get like a list of those emails to maybe the CRO or somebody could send an email saying, hey, we just want to make sure that you logged into the system, but you didn't actually vote, just to basically, if there was an issue with the system, that they don't just assume that that they had voted and then not, or something happened. That way they can go back in and submit their vote. Just a
Yeah,
thought.
I can answer the first question. So the plans for the last day push. So already every single day of voting, the SU marketing team is sending out a mass email to everyone who hasn't opened the first email with specific changes to put emphasis on the prizes to give the incentive, right? Putting as a saying, the horse in front of the cart, with the like as a carrot in front of the horse with the cart. In terms of accessing the logins, that is something that I do not know, and unfortunately Andre is, as you are aware, who's from ICT helping with the system, is off this week. Another thing which I'm a bit unsure about that is that the fact that so we can track logins, right, like students like who logged in, but I'm not too sure if we're able to track who voted, just because of the anonymity side of the software too, as well, to make sure that their votes are protected. This might just have to be an exercise of getting people to just double check that they vote again, but that will be also quite the monumental task, as I stated before. Director Bothwell.
Just about like the anonymity. Sorry, I can't even say that word right now. Just about that aspect. To like what Director Vale was saying, like we could just email everyone that voted and say, like everyone that signed in, say double check to make sure you actually voted. But also just to point out that Nicholas said something in the chat where he also had friends report that it wouldn't load either after trying again hours later. They're able to access.
Yeah,
So I think this is definitely something that maybe is a larger scale issue if we're having this many reports of it not loading.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because it is very unfortunate that we're having to deal with this, right? And it's unfortunately severely going to impact our ability to meet quorum. So although I know that tomorrow we are going to make a big push, and that I'm very grateful for a number of directors and our Director Bothwell. Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
No problems. That will be a nice
That was
little
a
gap.
video. I wasn't telling you guys to shut up. I'm sorry.
No problems. I'm sure there have been worse gaps on the greater scheme of politics, especially in the Canadian Parliament. One of my favorite sitcoms to watch. But in terms of options, I think that our best bet is really to extend the nomination period to achieve almost 50% of the votes required will be a monumental task. And having this on the cusp of reading week is not very helpful either too as well. So we have a couple options. We can extend it, I believe, 24 hours if we think that's prudent, but I don't know if that's going to be sufficient just due to the fact that people are going to be leaving and the campus will become quite the ghost town in these next coming days. I will open up the floor to discussions if we think that we should push it, on the further date, or what the board thinks is the most prudent idea. Yes, Director Del Giudice.
So I think we should push it by a few days because we can't be sure if we'll meet quorum if we just extend it by 1 day. In order to deal with people who aren't on campus, potentially we can offer another giveaway for sharing a certain election post on Instagram or something. And we can make it such that people have to tag 2 people and post on their story to be involved in it. I think there are other ways to get people to vote.
Absolutely. We can definitely implement that. I believe that the social media ad hoc committee can for sure, get their hands on specifics regarding that. Director Vale.
Yeah, I guess 2 comments. The one is, I mean, I know it's convenient, and I think none of us want to have an emergency board meeting, but is it a bit too premature to be having this discussion until we know there was, and I mean, I know it's
the reason why we're having this discussion, Director Vale, is that I'm trying to save us from having an emergency board meeting, because this discussion will, I'm being very much of a realist, I was very optimistic given Tuesday's turnout. And then today would have been the same thing if we didn't have this weird, like, if it was only 100 people, I would say glitch, but 300 people, that is a bit more of it seems like a systemic problem here, right? So I'm saving us from having a meeting at 8 p.m. tomorrow, if that makes sense, since we are here, and I do not know if the board can meet at 8 p.m. tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't dispute that, but I guess on the one hand, what if we do end up meeting quorum by 8 p.m. tomorrow?
Then that's what we're voting on the motion. We're only
So I
doing
think
this as contingent.
as a caveat, a contingency.
Exactly, that's the
Okay.
whole point of this discussion, yes. And I think that
And then
should satisfy the policy too as well.
And then my other aspect here, and maybe the operations team, like executive director, something can clarify, is constitutionally, are we able to extend the voting period? Because I really don't see anything policy. There's really nothing that kind of speaks on it. I mean, obviously nominations, the CRO, and there's certain things in there that can be done, but constitutionally, can we do this?
That'll be it to, I believe the question was directed at the operations team, so either President Daniloff or.
Off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to that question, but I don't. If you haven't reached quorum, I definitely believe it to be an option. Yes.
If you bear with me, I can do also all of potential service to find the particulars and minutia of the policy. But in the meantime, I'll give the speakers list floor to Director Del Giudice.
Yeah, to answer that policy question, I would bring up the consideration that we would be having this discussion either way, even if we didn't reach quorum, and we would probably just extend it anyways, regardless of whether this meeting took place today or tomorrow. So I think that in order to reach quorum, we definitely should be open to the option of extending the voting days.
I think I will say that it will be of a great service, because I know that the candidates have already done a really, given the time frame of the selection, a really great job. And this IT mishap is no fault of their own, right? And I think to disqualify this whole election would just be a absolute travesty, especially given also all the efforts that we have put into. So, Director Bothwell.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important that if we don't reach quorum tomorrow, we don't put through the candidates through a whole new election. That would be terrible for all of us. I know my feet hurt from walking around all day today. So
Why?
so I'm of the opinion that if we were to not reach quorum by tomorrow night, we extend it. And I also did like the Instagram giveaway idea, and like we can even if it's just like something like post a screenshot showing you voted, like the thanks for voting screen,
Yeah.
and encourage your friends to vote.
Yeah,
We
no,
will be,
absolutely.
yeah, like just like what Phil just said, we can reach quorum, just a matter of when. So I think we need to extend it until we hit quorum. And if we have to keep
Exactly.
extending it, we have to keep extending it.
Yeah, for sure, Will's getting involved, pushing messages would be amazing. This is something that we, for sure, lessons to be learned in the annual general meeting. I believe that, that is actually a very good idea. This counts for proof of voting.
I would say we should stop voting at the end of the day that quorum is hit.
We could, but then but then the problem is that provides a very messy solution, right? I think having a hard date would be sufficient. Suggestions that I've spoken with have been either on the Friday, which I do not think is sufficient, on the Monday, or extending it until end of reading week. But it's like, that's the problem. We're reading week, everyone's gonna be off campus, no one cares. Like, to be blunt a bit, right? Until they come back, then people will obviously care again because they were removed from the university experience. What we could do is, because
I think
the thing
we
is
should
that,
put, like, if we extend it, Friday's not going to be enough. Monday's not going to be enough. I think we need to
Yeah.
extend it the next, like the Wednesday after reading week.
Wednesday after reading, we could do that by the next board meeting, but that again is a very messy solution, which I know
Well, we could extend it 3 days by 3 days by 3 days.
we
each
could do
time.
that too as well. I mean,
If that- if you want to-
I'll give it
right.
off first to Director Villasi on the speakers, then we can go back to you, Director Bothwell.
So just a couple thoughts, and I think there's no question we're going to need to extend it, and I don't think we extending it to. I think that it's kind of arbitrary to, as soon as it hits quorum. I think that's not. It's a bit messy and could. But I think at the end of the day, you need to have like an 8 p.m. cutoff on, and it's just a question of which day. My thoughts are, so I'm cognizant of the fact that realistically, up until Sunday, Monday are holidays. So my thinking would be maybe to go to the Wednesday of reading week. I think to go anything beyond that at this point is too premature. I think we need to be, I think the intention of extending it shouldn't just be to make it go on forever. But like the whole idea is it should be very moderate in terms of, that is to say that it should be in an effort. It shouldn't be like a really long period of time. And I think maybe realistically by Wednesday, I think we should definitely be able to hit the quorum. But if not, then I think at that point we can, as a board, have a quick meeting and reevaluate if need be to extend it potentially longer. But I think that should be a more than sufficient amount of time, given that we also have tomorrow too, and Friday.
Yeah.
And then
so yes, continue.
My other thing was now, how is there, if we're going to extend it, we need to develop some sort of communications plan, maybe for candidates and members at large, really to let them know sort of, what's going on, as I think as well, just a thought.
No, absolutely right. And I think that's something that could be very easily, communicated, right? There is a reason why I have not communicated the time for scrutineers to attend, because of the anticipation of this thing after I saw what was happening today, right? So all that material can go out, like, so I can send email out to, like, me and the CRO can send it, like, the contingency plan. But if we do hit it, we'll let them know exactly at 8 p.m. on Thursday. If not, then they already have the information for it. And I'm sure marketing will help us with that new marketing material saying extension. And with the extension, we'll also probably provide a new opportunity to have more giveaways, which was the original plan that I believe was discussed. And then also give 2 days maybe for Wills to do like a I don't know how much legwork will have to be required to get that done for tomorrow, by Will's opening though, to have a discount if they provide a proof of voting. Executive Director Champagne, could you speak to that? Like how much work that would be to get set up with on Will's
Yeah,
and,
not very much work at all.
okay, so we can get that done.
Yes, and the operations team. The only question is how you gonna pay for it.
It'll probably have to come out the elections budget, but then that's a scary thought because, how many orders can we anticipate, right?
I certainly wouldn't expect 45% of the votes to all come to Wilf's. But if we did, that might be a nice business problem.
That might, yeah, a nice business problem. I mean, we're trading one problem for another. Sounds like the story of this board, right? But given, look, it's good that we're having that conversation so we can clearly see the financial risk of having such a, this type of advertising scheme has been the bane of many businesses. But do we think the board thinks is sufficient? Like, that this would be like the risk is sufficiently mitigated, given the fact that we don't assume that we're gonna receive like our other 50% of the votes required, which is, let's just say in the ballpark, about 1,000 students just all clamoring to Wills at once, right? Do we think that we can go ahead with this idea and give approval? I believe do we need a motion for this?
So I think you've got a few different things that you guys have been talking about. I think first and foremost, you need to make a motion to extend the deadline for voting. So from Thursday at 8 p.m. to whenever you've arbitrarily decided. And then we'll need to then operationalize that by connecting with ICT tomorrow morning, which is fine. I can definitely take care of that. And then in terms of being able to operationalize, there would be the discount. We would need to have another motion put forward to ask the president to put forward that to the operations team. And then
Okay,
also,
yeah.
Symington, Gunn, and Chandhook, do we still have quorum?
I believe Director Symington is trying to find their way back.
Okay, but does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? They make a motion to extend,
Yeah,
vote that, you approve that, and then you talk about the discount, you vote to approve that, and we'll figure out a way. I've already got a message into JS to find out what that cost us back in January, so.
yeah. Before we get into that, I'm quickly in the communication with Director Symington to see if we can just get him back.
Well, he said he'd be back in a second, so.
Okay, perfect.
Like,
Okay, so in that case, we can go to Director Vale. Are you gonna have a comment or would you like to propose a motion?
I was just gonna make a motion that we contingent upon not reaching quorum at 8 p.m. tomorrow when voting is set to close, that we extend the voting period to the Wednesday and October 13th, 2021 at 8 p.m. And if quorum is not reached, then the board needs to revisit it.
Okay, that sounds good.
So a week.
Yes, so 1 week. Motion by Director Vale, seconded by, is Director Buffalo's that second or a question?
No, I have a question.
A question, okay.
So like we would be extending it to reading week. I thought we were like agreed that people won't be checking their emails at reading week. Honestly, so does that mean that we have to meet during reading week as well? So I am going to be out of the country.
Okay, well, I mean, we can,
I just think it's not valuable, like for it to just be done during reading week. I think it needs to be extended till after reading week.
that might prove a problem because then it makes a election voting period of like almost,
Like only one day before reading week and the rest is Thanksgiving and reading week. So I don't think that'll be very valuable.
yeah. Because then if we extend it to after reading week, that's a voting period of almost 2 weeks, right? It's a bit of a
Yeah,
messy
Can we
solution.
really count reading week as a voting period? Like no one's on campus.
I mean, can we even put I don't even know if we can put like a hiatus on on that. That
You
seems
can't
very
stop-
messy.
No, I'm not saying we'd stop the votes, but it's like not really like students aren't really on campus. Like it's not really valuable.
I definitely understand what you're saying. I mean, it could be, that's the tricky thing. I mean, the current motion stands to extend it basically a week of today, 13th, right? I see you're suggesting to go after reading week.
Even if it's the Monday
Um,
after reading week, that way we can meet right after reading week too.
I mean, what we can do is we can have it up until the Wednesday, right? And if quorum's still not met, then extend it to the Monday. It's contingent, so then we don't have to meet per se as what you're kind of getting at. I'm
Yeah, I
supposing.
will amend my motion to that. If quorum is not reached by the Wednesday. So why don't I restate my motion here for the record officially?
Yeah.
So my motion, actually, so it's not even an amendment since it really wasn't
Yeah.
seconded yet.
Yeah.
The, was to extend contingent upon not reaching quorum tomorrow at the Thursday, October 7th, 2021 at 8 PM.
Mhm.
That the voting period be extended until Wednesday, October 13th, 2021 at 8 PM. And thereafter, if contingent upon not reaching quorum at that particular time, that the voting period be extended to a period ending, or a voting period ending on October 18th, 2021 at 8 PM. And thereafter, if quorum is not reached, then the board needs to meet and discuss further.
There we go. Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Del Duce. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor? Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director oh, my apologies, he left. Director Del Duce,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Singleton,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Okay, just, going back, so, do we still, do we want to still, do we need a motion to apply the discount? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that that's the, we're doing things properly with there. Because that was a
I think
question.
you just because it's going to be like you have certain incentives built into your budget, it just
Mhm.
kind of makes it official that that's a way that we can spend that money. And as I
Okay.
said, the private message, according to JS, the January one only cost the organization about $300, so it's not like a huge expense.
Mhm. Okay, so, yes, Director Bothwell?
What's the discount? Is it like 10% like the student union volunteers get? Okay.
10% proof of voting. We can definitely do that for the duration of however long this election lasts.
Sweet.
So, yeah.
Helps that reading week Wilfs is closed.
Exactly, so people can't just do double dipping, right? Yes, okay. Director Bothwell, is that still hand raised up for question?
No, I just wanted to make a motion to
Okay.
enact Wilf's 10% discount in
Yeah.
contingent of providing proof of voting.
Okay, is there a seconder? Director Vale, is that a seconder or, okay, awesome. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion of matter? Oh, yes.
I was just gonna speak to the motion.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, no, I'm supportive. I feel that the financial risk is rather low, given the fact that Wilfs it sounds like it's closed for reading week, and the fact that the uptake, it wasn't a significant financial amount to that $300, it sounds like. And I wouldn't anticipate that it would probably be quite that high, given this short period of time. I also just I noted Nicholas, and as a candidate, I completely respect that comment. You know, I mean, that's my sort of why I think that Wednesday thing I think is, and realistic. I do think hopefully by tomorrow, but I think by next Wednesday, I definitely think we should have definitely met quorum. I would think by then.
I mean, I do agree with the sentiments of the executive director. It's not a question of if we'll reach quorum, it's when we'll reach quorum.
Yeah.
At the rate we were going at 700 votes a day, we were well on our way to do that. But this
Yeah.
problem that we just seen here always a little
If it's a problem, we don't know. Yeah.
Exactly. So that completely like sidetracked. Like we were literally exactly meeting the target of 700 votes a day with if we consider only the student login, unique student login metrics. But yeah, so going back, so that was motion by Director Bothwell, correct? Or is that yeah, seconded by Director Vale, and you
Yeah.
spoke to your motion. Is there any discussion on the matter? As there are no further discussions, all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Okay, motion passed unanimous consent. This will be a very good time to just also discuss that it is the intention of the next board meetings that will be on the October 20th, when we return after reading week, to have a discussion on perhaps adding a supplement or rediscussing what the elections budget will be for the annual general meeting, since that's where the budgeted money is coming out for this by-election. In terms of a question to the gallery, Nicholas, there will be an elections meeting tomorrow only if we have met quorum. Otherwise, we will have to hold on that for scrutineers until quorum will be. So what time will the essential decision be made? So yes, at exactly 8 p.m. If we have not met quorum, we will notify all the candidates exactly at 8 p.m. if quorum has been met or not.
So, but we'll have to let ICT know in the morning.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Because the elections do kind of like the election results, at least on my end, like do open up for the scrutineers, like, you know, for us to kind of count the votes and make sure everything is proper. In terms of that, so I think the executive director and CEO already mentioned that conversations have already been made to, I believe, Tim, who was also like working on the project with us. So we'll hopefully get that set up for tomorrow, and, you know, planning for the worst but hoping for the best. Okay. Yes, Director Vale.
Just a quick question, I guess, in terms of like the timeline, I think as when as a board, we're gonna have to kind of sort out the Brantford situation, like in terms
That
of
will be
whether it's a by-election or what's gonna happen there.
that will be after the election, but I believe that based on our discussion in prior conversations, that another by-election would only cause more problems because they'll just create a sense of voter exhaustion and sap away from the main election annual general meeting in January of 2022. We will be, I think it's prudent to have this conversation hopefully after on October 20th with our two new Waterloo directors. And as the board report does state, only 25 more days until policy research advocacy director Ian Muller will be back. And I think he will be much more, I think he will be exceedingly helpful in our discussion to see what we can possibly do. Does that answer your question, Director Vale?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move to a final agenda item. So just referring to question discussion. So this is more for information for the board. So we did attend the what was the name of the committee again? It is
Non-tuition fee protocol committee.
Thank you, Executive Director Champagne. And we reviewed it and approved of the current structure. So the deadline will be on November 30th, which is a Tuesday. And to keep accordance to our policy manual, members have to be informed of it no later than 35 days prior to that decision. I might have made some mistakes there to the Executive Director Champagne.
So our governing documents tell us that we have to have at least 35 days a time period for a call out for any referendum questions to be submitted by students. The deadline should not be the 30th because that's when we need to have those questions prepped for the non-tuition fee protocol committee so that they can give it the once over and give it their stamp of approval before it would go to the last scheduled board meeting, which is currently scheduled for Wednesday, December 1st, if I'm not mistaken. So the idea is that we would just need to kind of make a motion to officially do the call out no later than October 25th, because that would give us our 35 days that we would require. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of do the call out for referendum questions and support for referendum questions the week of the 18th, which is the week after reading week.
So the reason why we brought it up here is because it lines quite perfectly with how we have our next board meeting on October 20th. And yeah, Director Vale.
Just a question, and I guess it kind of aligns with this in the sense as I know I think operations has been very busy, supporting the election and doing all their other initiatives and great work. And then obviously as a board, we've been swamped as well between by-elections and just all this a lot of other governance related things to deal with. So I'm just wondering in terms of the, because I realize everybody's really busy and I think getting almost exhausted now, but we still have I believe the ONCA, Interior Not-for-Profit Corporations Act Transition Committee, Ad Hoc Committee, and as well as the Honorarium Committee. So I'm just, because those potentially could result in sort of referendum questions. So I'm just cognizant of when we need to kind of start meeting with those in order to be able to be in a position if we need to do any referendum stuff to deal with that.
Yeah, that would be immediately after the by-election, because I think in our discussions before, it was most prudent to have as full a board again as possible, because when it's and then finally, as you kind of hinted towards, the attention of the board will finally move past the by-election, and then we'll move towards kind of what our main job is, which is the governance piece. I especially am very keen to get the honorarium committee to be met. And we also have to have the finance committee meet before October 31st too as well. So trust me, there is a lot of things that I have, but it's not my intention to overwhelm the board with these things one step at a time, as the saying goes. But yeah, so I do not believe a decision has to be made for this unless I stand corrected, Executive Director Champagne.
I think it would be prudent for the board to vote to officially make the call for referendum questions the week of the 18th of October. That just allows us to communicate that it's out. We can figure out the nuance of those other committees that may or may not require referendum questions. We have to put it out there because there are other groups looking for a referendum question period, not the least of which will be the Grand River Transit UPass.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think this will save us from having to have another follow-up question after the reading. So can I get a motion table to open up the call for referendum questions starting on, I suppose, Monday, October 18th? With that, or
I would just put it the week of, as long as
of.
it's out before the Friday, then we should have ample time. And I think based on the materials that I've seen, because we can just update what we've done in years past with current information, we should be able to get that out relatively quickly.
Okay, so I'd like to amend that motion. Can I have a motion to open the call for referendum for the week of October 18th, 2021? Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor? Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Seaman.
I approve.
Motion passes unanimous consent. Next, moving on to new business and announcements. Does anyone have any new business or announcements to make?
I would like to add that the Vice President University Affairs position and the Vice President of Services Waterloo position are officially open. So if you know anybody that may or may not be interested in those positions, I would encourage you to reach out to them and encourage them to ask as many questions as they can so that we can have the best possible candidate turnout.
Thank you, Executive Director Champagne. So again, if we know anyone who's interested, by all means, we'll help forward them to this positions. I'd like to make some more lighthearted comments. I very much indeed enjoyed Director McCarthy's guest today during our election volunteer session. It was exceedingly the highlight of my day. I also want to say I really appreciate everyone turning out for the election volunteer sessions. It has been despite the kind of hiccups that we had, I'm really proud of the board and what we just did in these past 2 days. And I think we learned, we've done quite a bit to help get the word out of this election. And no matter what the outcome is, I hope that everyone has a very restful reading week. Moving on. So yeah, so if there's no other new business or announcements, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor? Director Bothwell,
I approve. Have a good night.
have a good night. Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director May,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Seeley.
I approve.
Motion passes unanimous consent. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a nice night.
Have a good night.
Andrew,
Yes.
are you okay?
Stop recording.